Sophie, aren't you a medical student? Don't you know what will happen if one gets infected with this virus? No one had any way to deal with the situation so far. Is she trying to court death? However, Sophie was annoyed with Nicholas' nosiness. She was busy, and she did not have time to waste her breath on him. You can leave now. You don't need to waste your time here. Regardless of everything, I won't leave with you. Not before, and not ever. It's impossible. No. No matter what you have in your mind, I'll be taking you away today. Nicholas was in love with her, so there was no way he was going to sit back and just watch things happen to her. Just as Georgina returned from her meal, she saw the intruding Nicholas. Sophie, who is he? Georgina admired Sophie greatly. Hence, upon seeing her in a standoff against a man, she chose to be on Sophie's side despite how intimidating the man seemed. No one important. Ignore him and keep working, Sophie said, for they had taken much effort to finally find a lead. They had to find out a way to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. The possible damage that would be caused by the quick-spreading virus was something they could not begin to imagine. Georgina nodded and went back to her work. However, Nicholas still refused to see Sophie walk into her own grave, so he said, I don't care. I'm going to take you away from here today. It doesn't matter, even if you blame me for this in the future. I'm not like Tristan. Tristan is capable of not caring whether she lives or dies, but I can't. No one else's life matters to me. The only one who matters is Sophie. While Nicholas was lost in his thoughts, Sophie turned around and gave the man disturbing her work a shot. What did you just inject me with? Nicholas cried out in a panic. He had come to take her away, but now, he was even losing control of his own body. Georgina, make the call and have them take him away, Sophie instructed. Their work had to be completed as hastily as possible, and Sophie did not have the time to keep talking to him. All right. Georgina instantly took Sophie's phone to make the call. Both Georgina and Sophie needed a phone to contact the outside world while they worked in the lab, and as Arius was sick, the higher-ups returned Sophie's phone to Sophie. Meanwhile, Alex, who had been waiting outside the entire time, was startled to see Nicholas getting carried out. Immediately, he ordered a few men to snatch Nicholas over. If anything were to happen to Nicholas, they would all be doomed because Javier would never let them off the hook for the matter. Right then, a conflict broke out outside, and a gunfight ensued. Georgina leaped in fright when she heard the gunshots, but when she lifted her head to look at Sophie, she was stunned to see the other woman still calmly working. It was as if the outside world had nothing to do with her. At that, Georgina could not help but think, this girl's too mentally strong. She's unfazed by everything that happens around her. Focus, Georgina, Sophie reminded. It was only then Georgina snapped back to her senses. Right, I'm here to help Sophie. This attitude of mine won't do. We have to bear the responsibility for these infected people. In the meantime, Alex and his men had gotten Nicholas back. After making sure that Nicholas was fine, Alex promptly contacted Javier and arranged Nicholas' trip back to Anglander. By the time Nicholas woke up, he was already on the plane back to Anglander. When he looked at Alex, he had a scowl on his face. Who told you to act without my permission? Do you know what you're doing? Nicholas screamed. Alex hastily went down on a knee. Mr. Nicholas, everything was my decision. No one else had anything to do with this. If you want to punish someone, please punish me alone. Simultaneously, Alex was thinking, Chenia's in such a perilous situation right now. What if Mr. Nicholas gets infected with the virus there? However, Nicholas grabbed Alex's collar and hissed, Alex Sable, are you challenging me continuously because you think I won't be able to bring myself to kill you? Alex stared into his eyes and replied, Mr. Nicholas, you should know that everything I've done so far is for your sake. Sophie has never been one to show you mercy, so why do you still care about her now? The one Nicholas had fallen for was a woman who would never love him back. To Alex, Nicholas' persistence was almost laughable. You. Nicholas fumed. I don't want to hear you anymore. Men, throw him off. He had given enough opportunities to Alex. He was not going to give him any more. Also, have the pilot turn around and return to Chon-aea. There was no way Nicholas was going to leave Sophie there by herself. He had to take her with him. However, everyone in the plane went down on one knee. Mr. Nicholas, Alex is doing this for you, so please spare him, one of them pleaded. Furthermore, no one was willing to go to Gypsdale at a time like this. Nicholas narrowed his eyes. Mr. Nicholas, I have news from reliable sources. Tristan is in Englander. If you want to kill him, now is the chance. Everything they did would be far easier if they were in Englander. Tristan. Nicholas arched a brow. Sophie's aloof demeanor toward me is all because of Tristan. If this man dies, everything will resolve itself. Good. I hope you're not lying to me, or else I'll feed you to the dogs. With that, Nicholas finally lay back down. Keep a close eye on Sophie and make sure she stays perfectly safe, Nicholas said to his men. In the meantime, Tristan and the others arrived at Englander. The place they stayed was the same manor they previously lived in. The old butler knew about what happened in the country too, so he was worried when he saw that Sophie was not with them. Too fearful to ask Tristan anything, the butler went to Felix instead. Mr. Northley, where's Ms. Tanner? Why isn't she with you? It's so dangerous in the country right now. You should have brought her along with you. Felix was surprised to find out that the old butler still remembered Sophie. She has something important to work on in the country, that's why. Don't worry. She'll be fine, Felix answered. She's well liked. She hasn't known this butler for long, right? I'm shocked that the butler actually remembers her and is worried about her. I see, the butler muttered despondently. Right then, they located Barney's position. Mr. Tristan, you don't need to go. I can head there myself. All they needed was to take Barney away, and it was something Charles could do by himself. However, Tristan glanced at him and shook his head. I'll do this myself. Barney was the only one who could make the elderly man stay for a little longer. Furthermore, Barney would be able to assist Sophie if he were to go to Chon-aea. That night, a group of top-notch assassins sneaked into Barney's cell. The moment those assassins located Barney, they immediately reported to their boss. Then, a handsome man came in a helicopter. Barney had seen Tristan before, so he knew who the newcomer was. At the sight of Tristan, he let out a sigh of relief. He had been locked up ever since he brought up his intention to move the International Medical Association to Chon-aea. Finally, he saw a ray of hope for him. Mr. Tristan, did Sophie ask you to come and save me? After being cut off from the outside world for so long, he was not aware of anything that was happening out there. This is not a good place to talk. Let's leave first. I will make arrangements for you to go to Chon-aea when we get out. After saying that, Tristan started making his way out with Barney. Meanwhile, Sean and the other men had completely torn down the prison such that it would be impossible for anyone to find out who Barney's rescuers were. Barney finally heaved a sigh of relief when he got into the helicopter. These people are too much. Medicine is without borders. I have contributed so much to Englander for so many years. I can't believe that they had me locked up. Barney was boiling with anger. Because of that, he was feeling even more determined to go to Chon-aea. Dr. Smith, what happened was... Tristan briefly told Barney about the situation in the country. After listening to what happened, Barney instantly understood the reason for Tristan's presence in Englander. Send me back now. Everyone knew how much Sophie's grandfather meant to her. As such, they should not wait any further. Don't worry. I've already arranged for a plane to take you back to Chon-aea. Tristan knew that Barney was very fond of Sophie. With the doctor around, he was confident that nothing bad would happen to Josiah. After sending Barney off, the group headed back to the mansion. Now that we have settled the first problem, the next would be to tackle the virus. That's definitely a tricky situation. They were not the only people who were investigating the matter. Eustace was in Englander as well. However, no one had found any clues at the moment. Mr. Tristan, what should we do now? Felix asked. Activate all our networks. We have to get to the bottom of this at all costs. Since the other party dared to attack Chon-Aea, Tristan would not let them off. Otherwise, everyone would think that Chon-Aea was easy to mess with. Sean nodded. Don't worry. I've already started to reach out to our contacts. We should be able to make some headway soon. That concerned the reputation of a country. As such, everyone was treating the matter with high importance. It was a reflection of the nation's pride. Charles nodded as well. Just then, Ophelia arrived. She wanted to meet Tristan after knowing that he was in Englander. It had been a long time since she last saw him. She was feeling very emotional as she stood outside the door. Ophelia was a fiercely independent woman, but she started acting like a teenager because of Tristan. She could feel her heart beating faster, knowing that she would be able to see the man soon. After waiting for a while, the butler finally led her into the house. Why are you here? Felix was somewhat satisfied with that mentee of his. However, he could not help but shake his head at the thought of her feelings for Tristan. The fact that the woman had visited not long after they arrived in the country clearly showed that she had not given up on Tristan yet. I'm here to update you on some work-related matters. Ophelia presented the perfect excuse for her to be there. Her mood instantly brightened when she noticed that Sophie was not around. Mr. Tristan must have realized that Sophie is not the best woman for him. That's why he did not let her tag along this time. Even though Felix was feeling quite speechless, he still brought her inside. Mr. Tristan, she has something to report to you. If it's regarding the branch office in Englander, you can report to Felix directly. There's no need to look for me. Tristan was not in the mood for that. He had to focus his energy and resources on investigating the virus and finding out who was behind it. That was the only way he could help Sophie. Ophelia's face fell when she heard that. Mr. Tristan, All right. You may leave now. Tristan did not have time to listen to all that nonsense. Felix had no choice but to send the woman out. Haven't I already told you? You wouldn't get what you want. Stop wasting time. She has a bright future in the company if she continues working hard. But things might end up differently if she insists on doing this. Mr. Northley, Ophelia wanted to explain herself but swallowed her words when she saw that Felix had already shut his eyes. How is it possible to hide your love for someone? After Felix returned, the four men continued with their discussion. Meanwhile, Barney had already arrived at the hospital. Felix had made arrangements for someone to fetch the doctor to the hospital immediately upon his arrival in Chon-Aea. After examining Josiah, Barney shook his head. Morgan knew that Josiah's condition was hopeless from Barney's reaction. The previous time when Josiah had an operation, Barney was also there. As such, the doctor was no stranger to Morgan. He knew that Josiah's condition must be in dire straits for Barney to shake his head. We can only try to keep him with us for as long as we can. We will at least have to wait for Sophie to be back to bid her last farewell to her grandfather. Morgan was heartbroken to hear that. However, he knew that they had already tried everything possible and had no other choice. Nodding his head, the butler said to Barney, "We will have to trouble you then. Old Mr. Tanner's final wish is to see Sophie one more time. Let's try our best to make that happen. Otherwise, it would be a regret that would haunt the two people forever." Barney passed some medicine to Morgan and said, "Feed him this medicine once a day. Let's hope he hangs in there a bit longer." There was nothing else they could do. Sometimes, even the best doctor in the world would be defenseless when up against death. Morgan took over the small medicine bottle at once. "Okay then. I will be off to help Sophie." Barney knew that Sophie was fighting alone and could not wait to join her. The virus was simply too strange. On the way to the hospital, he had already done some of his own research. However, There were some details that he had to discuss with Sophie. Felix got someone to send Barney to the central hospital. Sophie was in the midst of testing a new drug when the doctor arrived. She remained rather calm when she saw him and did not show any change in her expression. "How is it going?" Barney, who had already changed into protective gear, approached Sophie. "We still haven't found the solution yet." Although Sophie had been pulling multiple all-nighters, they had not made any progress. However, she knew that the process could not be rushed. "Don't worry. I'm here to help you now. I'm sure we will be able to find the solution soon," Barney said confidently before continuing. "Let's go and take a look at Arius first. Isn't he infected as well? We might get some important clues from him." Georgina had been staring at Barney as it was her first time seeing the man. "Georgina, this is Dr. Smith. He's here to help us." Sophie introduced Barney. "Dr. Smith? Is he the Dr. Smith she knew? The best doctor in the world? Is he Dr. Smith from the International Medical Association?" Georgina could not believe that she was meeting the legendary doctor personally. However, anything was possible when it came to Sophie. Sophie merely nodded in response before leaving with Barney. Georgina gaped in disbelief as she stood rooted to the spot. Everyone in the medical industry knew about the International Medical Association and dreamed of joining the organization. However, it seemed like an impossible dream for someone like her. Never had she expected to meet Barney in the hospital that day. In fact, he was her biggest idol. He was the legend of the medical industry. Meanwhile, Sophie and Barney arrived at Arius' ward. Arius was in rather good spirits. When he saw Barney, he waved with a smile before greeting. "Dr. Smith, you're finally here. If you had taken any longer to come, you might not have been able to see me. Alas, I'm so disappointed in you. How could you have fallen ill during such a crucial time?" Barney found himself at a loss for words. "Maybe I have not taught him well enough." Arius smiled in resignation. "I didn't want that to happen either. It's all your fault for not teaching me well. Anyway, Sophie, I heard that you have already found the pathogen. Good luck, and hang in there. I've saved you so many times. Now, it's finally your turn to save me." The man did not want to suffer from any side effects. "Don't worry. Evil people usually get to live a long time. I won't let anything bad happen to him. Dr. Smith, I'm really fine. You guys should get back to work." Arius knew that they were busy and did not want them to waste time on him. "I've noted down the changes in my body over the past 2 days. Hopefully, it will be of some use to you." As a doctor, Arius knew what changes to look out for, and as such, his notes would certainly help in the research. "Thanks. How can you still be in the mood to do such things when you are barely even surviving?" Sophie said casually as she took over the notebook. Arius was rendered speechless. "What are you talking about? I'm in the prime of my life. I'm not going to die so easily. That's simply not possible." On the way back to the laboratory, Barney told Sophie about his encounter with Tristan in Englander, and Sophie could not help but worry. Although she knew Tristan's purpose for being there, she still found it too dangerous. "Dr. Smith, why don't you go in first? I need to make a call." "Thankfully, I have my phone with me." "Okay." Barney entered the laboratory first, knowing very well who Sophie was going to call. Sophie dialed Tristan's number while leaning against the wall. It had been ages since she last saw him. Sophie merely nodded in response before leaving with Barney. That was the longest time the couple had been apart, and Sophie found herself missing the man. "Why are you in Englander? I've already told you that I can handle the virus on my own." It's too dangerous for him to be in Englander now. When Tristan saw Sophie's name on the caller ID, his heart skipped a beat. He had not heard from her in a long while and had been feeling very worried. He could finally feel more at ease after receiving her call. "How can I let you fight the battle all by yourself? I want to be able to do something for you. Don't worry. I will take care of myself. You have to promise me that you will be careful not to get infected with the virus too. That was Tristan's greatest fear. I know. Tristan, I miss you so much. Sophie switched her phone to her other hand and continued. Remember what you just promised. You have to protect and take care of yourself. If you end up getting hurt, I will be really angry. Okay. I will. You too. I will be so mad at you if you contract the virus. Both of them could not stop worrying about each other. However, faced with the current situation, neither of them could back down. All they could do was work hard separately, and at the same time, protect themselves so that they would not end up breaking the other person's heart. All right. I have to get back to work now. Sophie hung up after saying that. It was impossible to express everything they wanted to tell each other in just a few words. Tristan only realized that the call had ended when he heard the beeping sound of the phone and snapped back to his senses. Sean gave a comforting pat on Tristan's shoulder when he saw the look on the man's face and said, "Don't worry. Sophie is a smart woman. She knows how to protect herself." Tristan let out a sigh. Words were simply useless during times like that. The only way to help Sophie was to find out who the mastermind was. That was their priority at the moment, and nothing else mattered. It had been a long time since the four of them had tried to solve a problem together. They could find a solution to anything as long as they combined forces. By the way, Nicholas is back. Felix had just received the news. He has been waiting for an opportunity to attack you. We need to be careful of him. He can bring it on if he has the guts to do that. There is still one score that I haven't settled with him yet. How dare he try to snatch my girl from me? Let me teach him a good lesson. No matter what, we are still in Englander. It's better for us to be more careful. One would never be able to win without the home advantage. The Sable family had its roots in Englander and considerable influence there. They could easily kill someone if they wanted to. Meanwhile, the entire Gypsdale had fallen into chaos. Everyone was already aware of the virus and was fearing for their lives. At the same time, many medical experts gathered at Central Hospital. They had gotten news that Barney was there and had willingly offered to work under the man. Everyone was working hard on their respective tasks, and the research was going smoothly. Barney was amazed by Sophie's talents after working with her for the past few days. Previously, he had thought that the woman was a genius surgeon. However, he did not expect her to be so proficient in DNA sequencing as well. After seeing that, he was even more convinced that his decision to come to Chon-AEA was right. Novel drama. Feeling worried that Sophie was looking rather pale, Barney poured the woman a glass of water. "Thank you," Sophie said as she accepted the glass. "Sophie, you are so noble." She had experienced things other girls her age would not have experienced. More importantly, when faced with such problems, she was able to deal with them so level-headedly. That was truly impressive. Sophie took a sip of water. She was relieved that their research was finally making some good headway. When she heard the compliment from Barney, she could not resist letting out a chuckle. "I'm not noble at all. I'm doing this because I have faith in both myself and Chon-AEA." That was the reason she had stayed on and persevered. Barney shook his head. "No. You are indeed noble. You're only 19, but you have already experienced things that most people wouldn't even get to experience in their entire lifetimes. Besides, those experiences would put her in very good stead in life." Barney continued sincerely, "Everything you have done is already enough to allow you to leave a legacy in the medical community. She is only 19, yet she has already achieved so much. It's exciting just to think about how bright this girl's future will be. That's not what I'm after." Sophie had never cared about fame or accolades. "Sophie, I know that you are capable, but you have to know that life and death are a part of the natural life cycle." Barney was worried that the girl would not be able to accept it when she heard about her grandfather's current condition. Sophie took a sip of water and said, "Dr. Smith, once everything is done here, could you please help my grandpa? He's having health issues." Sophie was a medical student, so naturally, she noticed it. However, Josiah didn't want her to know about it, so she just acted along. Barney's hands froze momentarily when she suddenly mentioned Josiah. If she knows old Mr. Tanner is critically ill, will she still continue with the research here? I need her here. With that in mind, he decided not to say anything about it. What's wrong? Being as observant as always, Sophie noticed Barney's awkward reaction. Did you see my grandpa already? Is something wrong with him? She asked suspiciously. Barney shook his head in response and lied by saying, How would I have done that? I came here straight upon arriving from Englander. I haven't seen old Mr. Tanner. Are you telling the truth? Barney was a knowledgeable and tactful man. After the initial slip-up, his acting was natural once more. Yes. Why would I lie to you? Don't you know how successful your grandpa's surgery was the last time around? Okay. Got it. I'll go back to work now. A lot of people were relying on their research, so she knew she couldn't afford to waste time on that matter. Meanwhile, Tristan and the others had their eyes set on their target after knowing that the mastermind was actually Englander's leader. Since they had the balls to do such a thing, we should teach them a lesson. Otherwise, they'll think they can bully Chanaea in whatever way they want. I want to capture him myself, Tristan uttered domineeringly. Okay. Obviously, the other three weren't going to object to that. Indeed, this time around, we must show all the people in Englander that they can't afford to mess with Chanaea. Their general election will be held tomorrow, right? In that case, I'm going to stop him from taking part in it. By then, let's see if he can still act so brazenly. Sean had always been a quiet man, but he was too angry. That man is cruel. We ought to teach them a lesson. Come here. Let's devise a strategy. Tristan gathered those three, and they started planning. Any single one of them was capable of plotting a devious plan that could destroy their targets, let alone four of them combined. At that moment, Englander's candidate, Stephen Warnock, was at home, and he suddenly felt a chill running down his spine. Why do I feel like something bad is going to happen to me? Seeing how Stephen was acting, his secretary asked, Boss, are you okay? The general election will be held tomorrow, and everything's ready. Don't worry. Stephen nodded. What's going on in Chanaea? Stephen's eyes were filled with viciousness. I've planned this for a long time. Now, Chanaea is doomed. Don't worry. Everything is going according to our plan. Chanaea is bound to obey us this time, the secretary answered. We jumped through hoops and loops to force Chanaea into submission. Chanaea has plunged into terror, so it's only a matter of time now. How about Tristan? Stephen was paying close attention to the man. Although Tristan is just a businessman, he's so influential that it's frightening. He's already in Englander. Hence, we have to be careful during the general election tomorrow. Tristan is an unpredictable man. I heard that he and Nicholas are after the same girl. Give the Sable family a call, will you? I'm not letting Tristan leave. Stephen uttered ruthlessly. Stephen had always been after the same thing. He wanted Englander to own Chanaea, and the gene virus was only one of his efforts in achieving his objective. Sure, Senator. I'll contact them now. The moment Nicholas arrived home, he received the call. Evidently, the Sable family was rather influential in Englander. Nicholas agreed to it right away when he was told about Stephen's plan. Since the enemy of my enemy is my friend, Stephen is now my friend. Nicholas went to find Stephen personally that night. Stephen knew he had made the right move when he saw Nicholas showing up personally. It seems like Nicholas hates Tristan to the bone. Stephen told his secretary to open a bottle of wine and raised a glass before saying to Nicholas, I think we'll have a fruitful collaboration. If Tristan dares to come here tomorrow, there's no way back for him. Stephen hated Tristan because the latter stole quite a few business deals from him. Nicholas took the glass and clinked his glass with Stephen's. That's right. My only objective is to keep him here. The general election was the perfect opportunity for Nicholas to do so. Both parties spent the entire night strategizing. They were both extremely good, so everything would come down to the details. Essentially, that night's preparations were going to decide the outcome. Tristan personally came up with the strategy to capture Stephen. He wanted the man to know that he had committed a mistake. Tristan only woke up at 8 the next morning. Needless to say, they were all exhausted. However, that was the day they were going to capture Stephen. They also had to make sure that they wouldn't jeopardize the relationship between Anglander and Chanae. That was something others deemed impossible. Still, Tristan had the confidence to pull it off. At around 8:30, Tristan went out to have breakfast with the rest. "Mr. Tristan, perhaps you should sit this one out. Charles and I will get it done." Sean thought it was safer to have one of them sitting out. "I'll go and you'll stay." Tristan trusted Sean the most. "How about your injury?" Sean questioned. "I doubt Nicholas is going to let him off the hook so easily. Is it wise to let him go? It's just Nicholas and Stephen. In my eyes, they're nothing. Besides, I'm almost fully recovered. I want to capture Stephen as soon as possible and go back to see Sophie," Tristan answered. Hearing that, Felix said, "I know you miss Sophie, but you're still injured. Perhaps." "Felix, you've been by my side for a long time now. Do you not know me yet?" Tristan asked. "Obviously, Stephen and Nicholas are after me. How could I not take them on? I've never been one to run away." Charles was also worried. "Mr. Tristan, stop worrying. Don't you guys have faith in me?" Tristan interrupted. "It's not that. Clearly, the plan the four of us came up with is perfect. However, I'm still traumatized by the state you were in when you were injured last time," Sean uttered frankly. In fact, they were all traumatized by that particular event. Stephen wanted to get rid of Tristan before the general election. Therefore, he already plotted a plan with Nicholas. Sure enough, a grin appeared on Stephen's face when he saw Tristan and his men arriving in helicopters. "Tristan is here. You're going to die today." Stephen was smiling haughtily. As one of the 5 richest in Anglander, Stephen's capability was undeniable. Yet, Tristan had already defeated him a few times prior. Stephen was furious, and he was determined to turn things around. "Senator, they're here." The secretary was trembling slightly when he saw the helicopters flying over their heads. Although the secretary had been by Stephen's side for a long time, that was the first time he had seen something like that. This is Anglander, but Tristan managed to gather so many helicopters. Besides, it looks like they came prepared. Stephen couldn't help but kick his secretary when he saw how startled the secretary was. "Have you not been by my side long enough? Why are you being such a scaredy cat?" Stephen scolded. "I've already planned everything out. What are you afraid of?" Indeed, Stephen even had Nicholas help in the battle. Right then, a gunfight ensued between Stephen's men and Tristan's men. Tristan was brave enough to initiate a gunfight in Anglander. This time around, Tristan was filled with confidence. "I won't let Stephen participate in the general election. He wishes to take control of Chanae, isn't he? Dream on." Tristan was in the helicopter leading the way, and he was dressed in a camouflage uniform. Furthermore, he was wearing an earpiece. Sean's voice was firm and powerful when he said through the earpiece, "Everything's ready, Mr. Tristan." His voice was definitely capable of making one feel safe. That was why Tristan wanted Sean to be the commander of the operation. Sean is perfect for this. "Okay, let's move," Tristan ordered. Upon hearing that, the helicopter descended to a suitable height to let Tristan get to the ground by jumping off a ladder. Stephen couldn't help sniggering when he saw Tristan appearing at the scene. "I knew it. Tristan is here because he wants to capture me personally. That's why he ignored all the risks and showed up. It's been a long time, Mr. Tristan." Although there was a gunfight going on, Stephen appeared extremely calm. In fact, he was even smirking. Tristan threw a glance at him and replied, "You're right. It's been a long time. Tristan looked powerful and domineering in his camouflage uniform. Upon seeing how confident Tristan was, Stephen started to second-guess his actions. However, it was too late to regret his choices. Left without a choice, he had to go ahead with his plan. "Mr. Tristan, we have a general election in England today. Why have you come all the way here?" Stephen asked directly. "Are you going against the whole nation?" No one could possibly go against an entire nation on his own. In response, Tristan smiled mockingly and said, "Why would I make an enemy out of Englander? All this while, my only enemy is you, Stephen. Once the people of Englander know what you've done, do you think they would still vote for you?" Since Tristan dared to go all the way there to confront Stephen, it was safe to say that Tristan knew exactly how to get himself out of trouble. However, Stephen laughed arrogantly and responded, "How would they ever find out about that? Besides, even fewer people would hear about it once you're dead." Indeed, Stephen's only aim that day was to kill Tristan. "Are you planning to kill me? I was wondering what you were after." "There's no way you can kill me," Tristan replied. There and then, men from both parties started battling each other. With Tristan commanding the forces, Stephen's men didn't stand a chance. Although Stephen had seen it coming, his expression was still utterly grim when he saw his men falling one after another. How could this be? I've been preparing for this for such a long time. Do I not stand a chance at all? Moreover, we're fighting in Englander. Grab him. Tristan ordered his men. Ha! Catch me. Dream on. Stephen sneered. Just then, a fleet of helicopters appeared in the sky once more. Moments later, Nicholas' men had Tristan surrounded. Stephen heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Nicholas. "Mr. Tristan, did you really think these are all the men I have? If that were the case, do you think I would go against you?" Stephen was elated. "Don't worry. I'll give you a quick death. I won't let you suffer." Stephen was getting carried away. Felix couldn't help but laugh when he saw how Stephen was acting. "Stephen, do you think Nicholas' arrival is going to change anything? No matter who comes to your rescue today, you're leaving with us. You like viruses, don't you? We'll give you exactly that." Felix thought it was a great idea to perform experiments on Stephen. "It's actually a magnificent idea." Right then, Nicholas and his men arrived at the scene. "Kill Tristan," Nicholas uttered confidently. "Sophie will only return to me once Tristan dies. I'm willing to do anything for her." Despite being under a tremendous amount of pressure, Tristan and the other two were as cool as a cucumber. Tristan then shot a glance at Nicholas. "He thinks he can kill me, doesn't he? Dream on." The men from all three parties were incredible individuals. As the gunfight went on, casualties were rising. At the same time, Tristan's troops were getting fewer. Stephen and Nicholas were thrilled when they saw that. This is how it's supposed to be. Tristan is surely going to die today. Just as they were getting carried away, Sean and his team appeared. Evidently, their arrival immediately turned the tables. Nicholas didn't expect a team of people to show up behind them. In a blink of an eye, Nicholas suffered a huge loss. Tristan then pointed his gun at Nicholas' heart and pulled the trigger. "Buzz off," he yelled. Upon getting shot, Nicholas collapsed to the ground. Tristan had just done what Nicholas was planning to do. Alex was right next to Nicholas, so he saw the latter tumbling down. At that moment, Alex couldn't care less about the others anymore. Instead, he immediately held Nicholas up and asked, "Mr. Nicholas, are you all right?" Nicholas was in so much pain that he could barely breathe. "This is too painful. Mr. Nicholas." Alex let out a scream of despair. "If Mr. Nicholas dies here, we're all going to die. Bring the car here. Drive to the Sable family's private hospital now," Alex demanded. "We must save him. No matter what, he can't die." Stephen had never expected something like that to happen to Nicholas. As he saw Nicholas' men retreating, his expression turned grim, and he wanted to get into his armored car to flee. Right when he was starting his armored car, Felix went up to him and grabbed his leg to pull him out of the vehicle. Next to them, Stephen's secretary dropped to his knees and begged, "Please spare me. No matter what you want to know, I'll tell you. Please let me live." The secretary wanted nothing but to live. Apparently, no one in Anglander had courage, and they were all willing to beg for their lives. Stephen's face fell when he saw what his secretary was doing. "I really didn't see this coming. I thought I was able to achieve a complete victory. Tristan, what are you doing? I still need to take part in the general election. What are you guys doing? Forget about it. I'm willing to give you anything you want. All you need to do is to let me attend the general election." Stephen offered. Needless to say, Stephen had no idea what was going on. General election? No chance. You shouldn't have messed with Chon Aea. Stephen, if you die here, do you think someone is going to avenge your death? No. Don't you know much others hate you? Tristan queried. If Stephen were to disappear from the face of the earth today, no one would search for him. At that moment, Stephen's secretary was peeing his pants, and he was trembling in fear. "This is all his doing, and I have nothing to do with anything. Please let me go. I'm serious. I'll tell you guys everything you guys want to know. As long as you don't kill me, I'll give you my full cooperation." "John," Stephen warned John Whitaker. "Do you think they'll let you live just because you're willing to tell them everything? You must be dreaming." Felix couldn't help but laugh. "John, is it? Well, we can consider letting you live. However, that depends on how much you know. After all, the strong would always dominate the weak." Felix and the others had the right to act arrogantly. "Tristan, I'm a senator for Anglander. If I were to die here, do you think you'll be able to explain yourself?" Of course, Stephen didn't want to die. He was even dreaming of becoming Anglander's president. "What? Why would I kill you here?" Stephen breathed a sigh of relief when he heard that. "As long as I get to live, I can still come up with something." "Okay. That's enough. Stop talking nonsense to them and tie them up," Tristan ordered. "Both of these men are evil, so I'm not letting either of them off the hook." Right then, Sean's voice rang out in the earpiece, and he said, "All right, it's time to leave." After they had created such a huge scene in Anglander, it would be foolish of them to stay longer than they had to. "Okay, let's get ready to go back. Felix, destroy all the evidence here," Tristan ordered. "If we don't leave evidence behind, no one can accuse us of anything." In the meantime, Javier arrived at the hospital in a rush and saw Nicholas barely breathing. While trembling all over, he asked, "What happened? Didn't I ask you to follow him wherever he goes? How did something like this happen?" Alex was kneeling on the ground. After what happened, he couldn't forgive himself. Therefore, he was willing to accept any punishment Javier had in mind for him. Everyone else at the scene then knelt, and one of them said, "Old Mr. Sable, this has nothing to do with Alex. Mr. Nicholas made the decision on his own. None of us could stop him." Everyone knew what Nicholas was like. Once he made up his mind, there was no changing it. "Tell the doctor that if he doesn't save my son, he's dead." Nicholas was Javier's only son, so there was no way the older man would give up on Nicholas. Meanwhile, Alex was still kneeling on the ground, and he dared not move a single muscle. "I didn't want any of this to happen, but there's nothing I can do now. Everything has already happened. Tristan, if anything happens to my son, you're dead." Javier fumed. At the same time, in Central Hospital, Sophie had successfully developed the antidote. They would need to go through clinical trials next. Over the past few days, Barney's admiration for Sophie had grown exponentially. This young girl is totally unrivaled. Despite her tender age, she managed to develop an antidote for such a complicated virus. I can't imagine how bright her future will be. All right now, leave the rest to Georgina and me. You should rest. Barney knew how tired Sophie was. Throughout the research, she failed countless times, but she just kept trying. Not many people have the attitude she has. With the research done, Sophie could finally breathe a sigh of relief. What was left was to wait and see the results. That was something Georgina was capable of doing. Get some rest, Sophie. I'll stay and handle the matter. I won't disappoint you. Georgina was very excited because she had just accomplished a huge achievement alongside Sophie. Okay, Sophie answered. Before Sophie went to rest, she went to the ward to see Arius first. Arius had been lying in bed all this while, and he felt as though he was going crazy. Sophie. I knew it. You never disappoint. Arius heard about Sophie's achievement. He would always admire Sophie because she could never let one down. No matter what she did, she would always deliver the best outcome. However, she hadn't had a rest in a long time, so she looked rather pale. Even her beautiful eyes weren't as bright as always. I've just done what you were meant to do. Now that I've helped you, you better start thinking of ways to thank me, Sophie uttered. If not for him, I wouldn't be so exhausted. How about marrying me? He asked. In response, Sophie shot him a glance and replied, Watch your mouth. You better not let Tristan hear you say something like that. Indeed, if Tristan were to hear it, she wouldn't be able to protect Arius. Oh, how's Mr. Tristan? What's he doing nowadays? Arius asked. Tristan hadn't seen Sophie in such a long time. If he were to find out that I was the one who got Sophie here in the first place, he's going to kill me. He had gone to Englander. Sophie's heart ached when she thought about how Tristan had gone to Englander to capture Stephen. What if something bad happens to him? Oh, I see. Don't worry. He's an incredible man. Nothing's going to happen to him. Besides, don't you already know what kind of man Tristan is? Arius queried. Tristan is so strong that he can definitely crush all his enemies. I think so too. Sophie knew how impressive Tristan was. No matter what, he's going to be fine. Arius was getting jealous. Your relationship with him is so good. I bet it's already stronger than our relationship. Sophie raised her brows and asked flatly, Is there even a relationship between us? Arius was rendered speechless. She's too much. In fact, she's the perfect example of a woman putting men before friends. Sophie only left Arius' room when he chased her out and told her to get some rest. Sophie went back to one of the wards that she was temporarily staying in. The moment she opened the door, she grew wary instantly because she realized someone was in the room. At that moment, she was a researcher for the virus, so there were always people protecting her. Even so, she was still cautious. Sensing that someone was in the bathroom, Sophie went over and held the doorknob. The next second, she turned the doorknob and pushed the door open. Right when she was about to attack the intruder, she was delivered a warm hug. It's me, the man said. Sophie hadn't heard that voice in a long time. When she finally heard his voice, her heart started racing wildly. We haven't seen each other in more than 2 weeks. Why are you here? Why are you not in Englander? Besides, this is a hospital, and the virus is still not under control. Don't you know how dangerous it is for you to come here? She asked. I came because I miss you. Tristan missed her so dearly that he had gone to see her the moment he returned to Gypsdale. The whole time he was in Englander, he missed her badly. In fact, he had never missed someone as much as he had missed her. I've missed you too. I've missed you so much. In truth, she had always been an independent girl. Hence, she was surprised by how much she missed him. Seeing that he was finally by her side, she kissed him without thinking about the consequences. On the other hand, Tristan was planning to do so from the beginning. At once, he took the initiative and kissed her back. The atmosphere in the bathroom immediately grew intense. He was kissing her aggressively while pinning her against the sink. After a while, he wanted more, so he carried her onto the sink and stood in between her legs to continue kissing her. It was as if they just couldn't get enough of each other. In the end, he was gasping for air as he held her in his embrace. I've already captured Stephen, so he'll be connected to the virus. It's definitely going to work in our favor. Sophie then held his head and grumbled. Why did you do such a dangerous thing? Didn't I tell you I can find the antidote? It wasn't dangerous at all. It's just Stephen. Capturing him was child's play. Tristan wanted to help her instead of letting her fight the battle on her own. Oh, you. Sophie kissed his forehead. We've achieved a breakthrough with the research, so everything's going to end soon. Don't worry. She believed that she would be back by his side in no time. You're so incredible. Tristan praised. I'm serious. You're the most incredible among us. However, that's not what I want. I just want you to keep yourself safe when things get dicey. Tristan was a selfish man, so all he wanted was for her to stay safe. Have you only returned from England? Sophie noticed how tired he looked. He must have come to see me the moment he arrived. Yes. Go home and rest, okay? It isn't comfortable here, and you won't like it. Sophie knew Tristan had always been pampered, and he only used quality goods. No. I'm finally back, so I want to be with you. Tristan carried her to the hospital bed before getting into the bed himself. The hospital bed was small, so they had to squeeze. Neither of them had a good night's rest over the past few days, so they were both dog-tired. However, neither of them could fall asleep. Tristan couldn't sleep either, but he remembered how little sleep he had gotten over the past few days. Still, he couldn't help but urge. Sleep. Why is he asking me to sleep when he can't seem to fall asleep? Sophie leaned in closer toward him and voiced. Don't you have trouble falling asleep as well? I do. I can't sleep, he replied. Too many things had happened recently, so I'm just so happy I get to hold her once more. In fact, I feel relieved. It's just that I haven't seen her in so long, so I can't bear to close my eyes. In the dark, Tristan once again found her lips, and he ended up kissing her again. Instantly, the atmosphere in the room became intimate. If we continue doing this, neither of us is going to get any sleep tonight. I can't keep staying here and disrupting her sleep. With that in mind, Tristan immediately got out of bed and said, Sleep, okay? Take care. Okay. Be careful on your way home, and don't worry about me. Sophie was blushing uncontrollably, but she knew he had to go home to rest. Tristan caressed her cheek and said, Don't worry about me. With that, he left the ward. True enough, Sophie managed to calm her mind and fall asleep soon after he left. When she woke up the next morning, she showered and got changed before meeting Barney and the rest. Although the new antidote was working well, it seemed to have some side effects. Therefore, their priority was to minimize the side effects. Frankly, the side effects aren't that serious anymore, Georgina uttered softly. This is the best anyone could do. No. These side effects might affect the user's genetics. We need to make improvements. Too many people were going to be affected, so they couldn't afford to take risks. Georgina, please stay here and monitor the patients who have taken medicine. Sophie and I have to leave for a while. Barney knew Tristan had captured Stephen, so he wanted to see Stephen. Sure, Dr. Smith. Obviously, Georgina wasn't going to have a problem with that. Throughout that period of time, she had learned plenty from Barney and Sophie. I might have even learned the things that could change my life. Barney left alongside Sophie. Eustace was waiting for them outside. He returned at the same time as Tristan. Upon seeing Barney and Sophie walking out, Eustace immediately got out of his military jeep and opened the door for the both of them. This way, Dr. Smith. Since they were in Chon-Aea, Eustace was tasked to protect Barney. Barney got into the car, and Sophie followed closely behind. They soon arrived at a military base. Stephen was held captive at that location. He was stunned momentarily when he saw Barney. You're a traitor, Barney. What are you trying to do? I'm not letting you off the hook. Trust me. Stephen was livid when he saw Barney. Also, you want to move the International Medical Association to Chon-Aea, don't you? I refuse to accept it. Barney found Stephen amusing. "Stephen, who do you think you are? You're now a captive. Do you think I need your acceptance? You're so shameless. Do you think you're speaking for everyone?" Even in Anglander, half of the population loathed Stephen and cursed him out. Rendered speechless, Stephen stammered for a long time, but no words came out of his mouth. He had no idea what they planned to do to him when he had been brought to Chonei then. In all honesty, he didn't even know whether he would live to return to his country. Sophie cast a look at the man before she walked over to Tristan. The latter was the one who personally seized the man and brought him back, so he was also involved in the matter. "Did you rest properly when you returned?" Hearing her cool and indifferent voice, Tristan grasped her hand. "Of course I did. By the way, I brought him back for you. He's the mastermind behind the virus this time." At that remark, Barney's temper spiked. Verily, he had never expected Stephen to do such a despicable thing. "I think you've lost your mind entirely, Stephen. Are you not afraid of going to hell after you die that you did such a heinous thing just for the sake of your own interests?" he thundered, aghast. He had always felt that the virus this time wasn't that simple. Instead, there must be someone pulling the strings behind the scenes. However, it never crossed his mind that it would be a citizen of Anglander. Worse still, it was Stephen who was going to run in the general election. "Barney, we're both from Anglander. As such, shouldn't you be helping me right now?" Even then, Stephen remained unrepentant. "If he's willing to lend me a hand, perhaps I can still go back to Anglander. As long as you kill Tristan, I can give you whatever you want." Although things had come to that, he hadn't given up yet and was building castles in the air. Following that turn of events, Barney ignored him altogether. He turned and asked Tristan at the side, "What do you want me to do with him, Mr. Tristan?" At that moment, Tristan was conferring with the person in charge of Chonei EA about an appropriate way to deal with the issue. Since he refuses to say anything, we naturally have to do everything in our power to get him to talk. "Stephen, are you thinking that Chonei EA would be doomed, and consequently, make the greatest concession as long as you keep your mouth shut? And are you still fantasizing about Chonei EA falling on its knees while begging for mercy?" He then gave voice to the thoughts hidden deep within Stephen's heart. Indeed, those were Stephen's convictions. "I painstakingly had someone cultivate the gene virus this time, and this Plan Z had been in the works for over 10 years. That aside, I've killed the person who formulated this virus, so it's impossible to develop an antidote." Even in Anglander, half of the population loathed Stephen and cursed him out. For that reason, he wasn't the least bit afraid despite being held prisoner right then. He was convinced they would all drop to their knees before him and implore him sooner or later. Everyone present knew that such was his intention. "Therefore, you'd best show me some respect. Otherwise, I wouldn't give you the antidote even if you were to beg me on your knees at that time." So what if they've got Barney here? The virus isn't going to give them extra time to develop an antidote. Upon hearing that, the base commander burst into laughter. "What wild imagination, Stephen. So, you want to see me begging you on my knees? Ha! Not even in the next lifetime." After saying that, he kicked Stephen squarely in the stomach. Then, he announced proudly, "Do you really think Chonei EA is a backwater country? Let me tell you that we're presently at the forefront of the world, both in technology and the military." That wasn't all, for Shanian talents were spread across the globe in that day and age. While they weren't in the country, they would return at all costs if their homeland were to face trouble. It was the loyalty the nation commanded in its citizens. Even when it came to the matter this time, many people contributed selflessly. Everyone played a part according to their means, some contributing financially and others physically. Even if it meant giving their lives, none balked. The descendants of Chonei EA only had a common goal: to defend their motherland, allowing no one to pick on Chonei EA. Few countries in the entire world could command such loyalty in their citizens. Hence, he was proud to be a Shanian. Similarly, it was his honor to be able to contribute something to the country. Stephen had never expected them to dare get physical with him when things had gotten so bad. Really? If so, I'd truly like to see how you're going to resolve the problem this time. Eventually, they'll definitely get on their knees and beg me. At that precise moment, Sophie took out a syringe from her bag. Seeing that, Stephen inexorably panicked. What are you doing? What do you want to do to me? At long last, trepidation swamped him. Sophie studied the syringe in her hand for a moment. Aren't you wholly confident in the virus you created? I'll let you have a taste of it right now. Having said that, she injected the virus in the syringe into the man's body before he could even register the meaning of her words. Thereafter she stated, "Now, I'll see whether you can wait until we develop the antidote." How dare you? You're simply courting death. She actually injected me with the virus. Stephen made to scramble to his feet to hit her. Alas, he fell back to the ground with a swift kick from Tristan. You're the one courting death. She isn't someone you can touch. Tristan proceeded to step on the back of the man's hand. Thus, Stephen ended up with a leather shoe crushing the back of his hand with a rather intense force. He had always been a golden child and had never experienced such humiliation, but at that very instant, he was trampled underfoot, his dignity obliterated. At once, his gaze turned indescribably vicious. You'll definitely regret treating me in such a manner. Even at that point in time, he was still impenitent. Ms. Tanner, I heard that you've already concocted the antidote. Thank you so much. I'm truly impressed that you did such a noble thing despite your tender age. The base commander gazed at Sophie in admiration. In response, Sophie flashed him a faint smile. I just did my part. In fact, we're all doing so. Tristan took her hand. That's true. We're all Shanians, so we naturally do everything within our capacities in the face of the country's crisis. Meanwhile, Barney plunged into deep contemplation as he stared at Stephen, who was being taken away. Now that we've brought Stephen over, I'm worried that Englander would declare war. If a battle were to break out between the two countries, it'd only end in countless casualties. Subsequently, he added, I can't shake off the feeling that the matter this time isn't that simple. I think there's something off about him. The base commander nodded in agreement. Don't worry, for no one else is aware that he's currently in Chon'e, with the exception of the few of us. Even if he were to die here, no one would know it was our doing. Tristan had long since wiped off all possible tracks. Hearing that, the base commander breathed a sigh of relief. Indeed. We're exceedingly powerful and have no fear of going to war, but still, it's the final resort. After all, we don't want to cause unnecessary casualties. This time, they would undoubtedly bring Stephen to trial and punish him by law since the man dared to do such a thing. How's your work at Central Hospital, Sophie? Can you make a trip home? Ultimately, Tristan was afraid that Josiah wouldn't be able to hold out for much longer. Halting in her tracks, Sophie snapped her head back at him. What do you mean by that? Did something happen to my grandpa? She eyed him in puzzlement, wondering whether something had happened. The only person who came to mind was her grandfather, for she didn't care a whit about anyone else. Seeing that Tristan had said as much, Barney knew that the matter could no longer be kept under wraps. Well, she would have learned about it sooner or later, and the truth is such right now. Make a trip home, Sophie. Anyway, everything has been resolved now. As for the slight side effects, leave them to me to figure out a solution. She can rest easy with me here. Tristan grasped Sophie's hands. Remember this. I'll always remain by your side no matter what happens, so don't be too sad about things. In truth, Sophie had already braced herself from the very beginning. Yet, she still panicked upon hearing that right then. Everyone else didn't try to dissuade her from leaving. All things considered, she had already done a great job, so there was nothing wrong with her going back to have a look at her grandfather. Tristan brought Sophie to the hospital directly. When they arrived at the entrance to the hospital, Sophie stood there for a long time, unable to bring herself to step in. Finally, Tristan took her hand. Let's go. Old Mr. Tanner has been yearning to see you. Verily, he must be bone-tired after hanging in there for so long. He led her into the hospital, to the room where Josiah was. Yale and the others had been keeping watch in there. Of course, they weren't there because of filial piety. Instead, they were merely worried that Josiah wouldn't leave them anything if he were to die. Therefore, they had been staying there all this time, hoping that the man would leave them some shares and not give everything to Sophie if for no other reason than them keeping him company. As for Sophie, they didn't trust her at all. At the sight of her then, Yale immediately stalked over. Where exactly did you disappear to, Sophie? Do you know how long your grandfather has been waiting for you? Why did you only now come when he loves you so much and is about to depart this life soon? The instant he started speaking, all that came out of his mouth were accusations. He wasn't concerned about whatever she had been doing. Conversely, all he cared about was the distribution of assets. Everything else didn't matter to him in the least. How's your work at Central Hospital? Sophie merely swept a placid gaze over him. With just that single look, Yale didn't dare utter a single word further. However, Willow then strutted over. Is there anything wrong with what Dad said, Sophie? Are you not the person Grandpa loves the most? And are others not allowed to say anything when you've done something wrong? A frown promptly marred Tristan's countenance. Ugh. These few members of the Tanner family are really revolting. If it weren't because of my promise to old Mr. Tanner to refrain from making a move against them, I would truly throw them out right now. Listening to them alone tires me out. Not to be left out, Charmaine hastened over as well. Sophie, your grandfather has always loved you most, so go and talk to him. He has been hanging on by a thread, waiting for you to come back. Sophie remained silent, but her hands balled into fists. Is there really no hope anymore? At the end of the day, things still came to this. Upon hearing the commotion outside, Morgan walked out of the hospital room. When his gaze fell on Sophie, his eyes turned red-rimmed. You're finally here, Ms. Sophie. Go on in. Old Mr. Tanner had been waiting for you all along. At his voice, Sophie could no longer be bothered to give the trio's intentions any thought. As soon as Yale and the others saw her entering the hospital ward, they wanted to follow suit. Unfortunately, Tristan's men stopped them from doing so. At that, Yale furiously shot daggers at Tristan. Mr. Tristan, I know you're incredibly powerful, but this is our family's matter. We only want to go in and have a look at Dad. Don't you think it's inappropriate for you to do this? Tristan, on the other hand, had his hands stuck in his pockets. The person he wants to see is Sophie, so please shut up. I don't like listening to nonsense. Tristan countered mildly. When Isabel learned that Sophie had finally resurfaced, she rushed over to the hospital in great sorrow. She was aware of how much the latter cared about Josiah. Now that old Mr. Tanner is in such a condition, she must be devastated. Hence, I want to keep her company by her side. By the time she arrived with Felix and only saw her uncle outside the hospital ward, she instantly knew that Sophie had already gone in. Can Sophie really accept it, Uncle Tristan? And how could you let her go in alone? She must be grief-stricken right now and needs someone to keep her company by her side. Isabel was utterly worried, so she no longer feared the man. She's exceedingly close to old Mr. Tanner and is presently bidding him farewell for the final time, so how could someone else possibly go in and interrupt their time? Tristan inhaled deeply, the mere thought of her distress then almost robbing him of breath. How I wish I could bear all this for her. But there are some things in which that's impossible. That was also the reason for his sheer anguish at that moment. Meanwhile, Isabel teetered on the verge of tears. She really couldn't imagine Sophie's crushing grief right then and wanted to go in to keep her company. Yet, she couldn't do so, for that was Sophie's final moment with Josiah. Thus, no one could go in and intrude into their time. Clocking her dejection, Felix wrapped an arm around her shoulder. All right, don't be sad anymore. Sophie still needs us to stand by her side, so there's no need for you to be all gloom and doom. At the very least, Sophie still has us with her." Sean and Charles rushed over as well. It went without saying that they knew Josiah couldn't hang on for much longer and had been merely waiting for Sophie. That day, Sophie returned. In other words, it was also time for him to leave. In the meantime, Josiah was in a coma when Sophie entered the hospital ward. Taking a seat beside him, she told herself that her grandfather was only asleep. Everything will be fine when he wakes up. She could only numb herself with that thought, for there was nothing else she could do. An indeterminate time passed before Josiah opened his eyes. No sooner had he glimpsed Sophie sitting beside his hospital bed than a smile bloomed on his face. He wanted to hold his hand out to her, but he hadn't an ounce of energy left. Sophie. That aside, he wanted to speak to her, yet he was likewise incapable of doing so. Naturally, Sophie saw right through him and swiftly grasped his hand. "I'm back, Grandpa. I'll remain by your side and keep you company forever." Sophie's eyes crinkled as she smiled. "No, I can't cry. I definitely can't write at this time. He'll undoubtedly be even sadder if I were to shed tears now." "Are you hurting, Grandpa? Where does it hurt?" Considering his current condition, he must be in terrible pain, right? He'd been waiting for me, and it was me who put him through such agony for a long time. Josiah was already content that he could lay eyes on Sophie before breathing his last. Innumerable words were hidden in his weathered eyes, but he couldn't give voice to anything at that time. All he could do was look at her greedily. If there's such a thing as a next lifetime, I still want to be her grandfather. I'll absolutely protect her well, allowing no one to pick on her. Needless to say, Sophie was well aware of Josiah's tremendous pain at that instant. However, she was hesitant to truly give up hope and grant him eternal peace. Meanwhile, Josiah's eyes had been darting over to the cabinet at the side. Noticing that, Sophie walked over and pulled it open, revealing a letter within. She took the letter out. It was from none other than her grandfather, addressed to her. She opened it, but she then started weeping after reading it. Hearing her sobs, Tristan entered the hospital room from outside. At the sight of her crying like a child, he strode over and wrapped an arm around her shoulder. "Don't cry anymore, Sophie. Old Mr. Tanner won't want to see you in such sorrow, so hang in there." Her tears felt like knives stabbing him in the heart. Nonetheless, they had to face all that right then, for no one could change reality. Even Barney couldn't do anything about it, let alone others. As Josiah witnessed Tristan's tender care toward Sophie, a sense of peace enveloped him. "Old Mr. Tanner merely wants to see you for the last time. I reckon he must be in terrible pain right now. As such, shall we grant him rest?" Naturally, Sophie understood Tristan's meaning. "Should I pull the plug and put an end to Grandpa's suffering?" "I'll do it." Tristan didn't want her to experience such a thing, so he volunteered to undertake the task in her stead. Regretfully, Sophie shook her head. She got to her feet and trained her eyes on Josiah. "If there's a next lifetime, I'll definitely seek you out and be your granddaughter again. In the next lifetime, I'll obey you so that you don't have to worry about me," Sophie vowed sorrowfully. A peaceful smile adorned Josiah's face. "Actually, I don't need to worry at all, no? She's a strong girl, and she'll certainly be able to continue living happily. Furthermore, she has Tristan by her side now." By then, Morgan and the others had also come into the hospital ward to see Josiah for the final time. Morgan cried so hard that he almost passed out. Fortunately, Felix remained by his side and supported him. Yale wept as well. Regardless of the fact that his father had been exceedingly strict with him, the man only did so for his good, and he knew that much. "Henceforth, I'll have no father anymore. There'll no longer be anyone I can depend upon, and no one will protect me anymore. Dad, sorry for having worried you all this time. If there's a next lifetime, I'll definitely behave and obey you." At that second, remorse flooded him. Beside him, Charmaine silently shed tears. On the contrary, Willow stood at the side with her face devoid of expression. It was as though everything unfolding there had nothing to do with her, and she was but a bystander. Well, what has all this that's happening here got to do with me? Grandpa loves Sophie the most, so I'm no longer of significance now that she's back. Thus, I only need to stand here quietly. There's no need for me to be sad or cry. After all, such is my status in the Tanner family. Josiah glanced around the room. Seeing the crowd of people there to see him off, he didn't cry but bobbed his head imperceptibly. Subsequently, Sophie personally turned off his life support system. Her hands shook incessantly, but still, she bit the bullet. That was the last thing she could do for him, so she would never have someone else do it instead. See you in the next lifetime, Grandpa. At present, she could only hope that a next lifetime truly existed. Ultimately, Josiah's eyes still fluttered close. There was still plenty he worried about in the world, but he could no longer bother about it all in the end. The moment he closed his eyes, Morgan passed out. Morgan. Felix shook the man, but the latter remained unconscious, so he had no choice but to carry him over for the doctor to check him over. Since Josiah had passed away, the issue of his funeral followed. Tristan made all the arrangements alone. Throughout it all, Sophie was taciturn. Isabel kept her company by her side, knowing that she was grieving yet couldn't do anything about it. Eat something, Sophie, she ventured. At the sight of Sophie all despondent, tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. Conversely, Sophie shook her head upon seeing that. You don't need to worry about me, Isabel. I'm fine. I merely need a bit of time. Verily, she was fine and knew what she should do. Nevertheless, she couldn't control her emotions then. She wanted to see her grandfather off in peace, but still utter anguish swamped her. Eat more, Sophie. If you don't eat, your body won't be able to take it. Don't allow your mind to wander anymore. Old Mr. Tanner wouldn't want to see you in such a state either, right? Go out first, Isabel. I'd like to spend some time alone with my grandfather. It was Josiah's room back when he was still alive, but Sophie and Isabel were the only ones there. Everyone else had gone off to get busy. Sophie. Considering Sophie's state, Isabel couldn't say anything further. She could only leave the room quietly. Felix was waiting for her outside. When he saw her coming out, he knew that Sophie was undoubtedly still grieving, so he wrapped an arm around her shoulder. All right, the only thing we can do now is to keep her company by her side. Don't allow your mind to run wild. I feel utterly useless, Felix. Sophie helped me a lot, yet I can't do anything when she's presently grief-stricken. You've done enough, silly. She merely needs a bit more time. She's not an emotionless robot, so she can't possibly stop feeling sad at once. I know. Indeed, Isabel understood that principle. But still, she couldn't help worrying about Sophie. Sophie stayed in Josiah's room for a long time. It wasn't until when the morning hall had been set up that she went over and proceeded to kneel there. Seeing that, Willow inexorably sneered. How could someone as indifferent as her be sad? Or is she doing all this currently as a show for others to see? Go over and kneel as well, Willa. It's far too inappropriate for you to stand here like this. Now that old Mr. Tanner has departed this life, even if she really held grudges against him in the past, they should all have faded away instead. She shouldn't be harboring ill will against him anymore. What are you talking about, Mom? My legs are hurting, so I can't kneel. In truth, Willow didn't want to go over and kneel at all. This won't do, Willa. Many relatives will be coming over today, and they'll be taking note of your attitude. Do you not want Tanner Group's shares anymore in the future? Even then, Charmaine was still obsessed with Tanner Group's shares. Can you stop being so naive, Mom? Is Sophie going to give me Tanner Group's shares if I go over and kneel right now? Do you still not understand the kind of person she is? Well, why should I still hope for something impossible? At her remark, Charmaine's brows furrowed. Even if not for the sake of Tanner Group's shares, he was still your grandfather. How could you be so apathetic? In response, Willow sneered. He never regarded me as his granddaughter, so why should I go and kneel before him now? Okay, that's enough. Whatever you want to do is your business, and I won't interfere. But don't poke your nose into my affairs either.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.